Good morning, everybody. Hello, and thanks for being here. I'm Martin Spring. I'm at Lancaster University Management School, and as Julian mentioned, I've been running what we call TIPS, Technology and Professional Services, which is a digital adoption accelerator. I'll say a bit more about that in a moment. I'm here representing the two adoption accelerators, and the other one being the Future Finance Accelerator, led by John Beaverstock at Bristol, at the back there. There's John. The idea when the call came out for what we've been doing was to develop and run an innovation adoption accelerator. Accelerators are almost entirely associated with the supply side, with invention and development of technologies, not adoption. So this is quite a new concept, really. Quite what form it would take was left to us, and we came up with two quite different solutions, I think, and obviously in different sectors as well. So John and co at Bristol and other universities focus on financial services, and we focus on professional services, law and accounting. What we did in TIPS is to support firms in actually doing some technology adoption and help them to do that and accelerate that process, and also to research and understand that process better. And the Future Finance Accelerator, I think it's accurate to say that it's more focused on preparing organisations to innovate by providing all sorts of training, development, and targeted discussions about thorny issues that crop up in the process. So that's what we've been doing, and there's a more general question about trying to understand how acceleration works in general for adoption. Okay, so that's what we've been up to, and yes, we've heard some broad big picture stuff so far, and we're going to dig into a bit of detail. And I think it was nice to learn this morning that what John's group and I and TIPS have been doing is researching and helping the marshmallow layer of management meet. It's good to know. Thanks for that. Yeah, we're mostly management school academics. We're not tech specialists, and we're interested in primarily the organisation and adoption processes. Okay, that's enough from me. We've got a panel representing all sorts of aspects of this. We've got two panellists from each accelerator. We're covering financial services, accounting and law, and people in different roles across these the organisations. I'll briefly mention our panellists, and then we'll get into some discussion about what the accelerator was all about in each case. And so we have Nathan Long, who's Senior Policy Analyst at Hargreaves Lansdown, working with Future Finance. Rachel McGowan, Chief Technology Officer at Moneyline, also working with Future Finance. Mark Hewitson, who is a partner at Ensor's Accounting in Ipswich. And finally Sarah Blair here, who's from Thornton's in Edinburgh and other locations, who's Director of Technology and Transformation, and particularly like the slide with lots of post-it notes on and service design. Okay. Let's start by going back a year or two and just asking the panellists to comment on where they were in their technology adoption process and what they came to the accelerator with as a challenge, a current state of affairs, and what the ideas about what the accelerator could do for them. Would anyone like to start that off? Mark? I'll go first.
Can everyone hear me okay? This feels a bit like a confessional, and normally it's just me and the priest, so I'll go for a larger audience this time. I work for Ensor's. We're a 30 million turnover, 300 people, 6 offices firm based in East Anglia. I trained there, started there in '94, left for the bright lights of London in 2000, and rejoined about 18 months ago. So when I came into the Accelerator programme, I'd basically been back at the firm for 6 months and was rather surprised at the lack of adoption of new technologies. So hence why we joined the accelerator process. Do you want me to go on a little bit more?
We'll come to what happened when you joined, and let's see where everyone else was starting from.
Yeah.
So you came back to a world that looked familiar from
Absolutely.
many years ago.
After 20 years in London, coming back and nothing really had changed, but we're getting there.
How about you, Rachel?
Yes, certainly. So I joined Moneyline 4 years ago as their first Chief Technology Officer, with most of my career spent in mainstream financial services. So Moneyline are a not-for-profit personal lender providing credit to low-income households across the UK that wouldn't generally have access to mainstream financial services. So we're probably the Moneyline were the opposite to you. They liked not lots of shiny new toys and probably bought everything that every salesperson wanted to sell them at every meeting that they went to. So we had an architecture that was replicated or duplicated, lots of functionality and features, but we probably used 10-20% of each of those across our really complicated architecture. So adapting technology for Moneyline was really easy. They were first to market using open banking 8 years ago. They're currently first to market using variable recurring payments. We've got an internal systems team. So for us, the reason that we wanted to join the Accelerator programme was for us to be able to continue our journey, which we've been on for the last 4 years, which is about stripping out all of that duplication and moving from an adapting of technology, off-the-shelf technology and well-established technology to move into adopting that innovation, and then how could we change the organisation to adopt to that and take the benefits of adopting technology.
Okay, thank you. Nathan.
I know nothing about technology at all, so this may be useful or not, I don't know. So I work for Hargreaves Lansdown. We are the largest direct-to-consumer investment platform in the UK. And I had a rather selfish reason for getting involved in that there's a massive regulatory change that's coming down the horizon. Put very simply, it's going to completely transform how consumers deal with their finances, because at the moment we are completely stopped from being able to help people because of it being deemed advice, and then bigger regulatory boundaries, needs to charge fees for that work. And that will drop away probably in the middle of 2026. So that gives a huge opportunity for firms like Hargreaves Lansdown and others across the sector to use data to better deliver services for clients. Now, I've been, from a policy perspective, have been lobbying for this change for years, and it looks like it will be completely transformative. And so I wanted to be, I suppose, more aware of what opportunities exist to then drive that change through, both for the organisation that I work for, but also for the wider sector, because it could be such a big change. And I think that's the reason that I first got involved in this programme.
So I am Director of Technology and Transformation, so operational technology, but also looking at cultural change and adoption of technology and how we can use it to change the way that we practice and deliver our services in legal. Thornton's is 45 million, about 700 people, independent Scottish firm. And over the last few years, I have been a massive, passionate fan of service design, human-centred design, starting with the problem before we get to any of the shiny stuff, and then finding the right problems for that technology to solve. And I was really excited to get involved with the Accelerator because I could see how much impact AI was going to have on our industry and on our sector. But I am an innovator, and I live and breathe in a world of other legal innovators. And the situation on the ground is very different from the often echo chamber of those events and places that we go to talk about innovation and AI. I spoke at a Law Society of Scotland event last October, I think it was. It was a general conference. There was 600 people at the conference, and it was mostly lawyers because it wasn't the tech conference, so it was slightly unusual. But we had an AI panel, and the first question was a poll to those attending about how confident they were in their knowledge of AI, and only 12% of the attendees said they were confident. So for me, there is an enormous people challenge here for the technology. So the opportunity for the Accelerator for me was to do even more with service design, to take on secondment, a couple of service designers from a local academy for service design that we have, and to really understand the human barriers that we need to change in order for the firm to harness technology, and then to hopefully engage the firm in a different way to find the opportunities to really bring that to life and diffuse that adoption as well. So education, finding out what the barriers were, finding out how people want to learn and engage was kind of the biggest opportunity for me. And then moving into adoption and some of the cool stuff that Lee talked about, in that, you know, we now have tools that the lawyers can use themselves, you know, that they can get involved and get engaged. So it was a fantastic opportunity to use the Accelerator and to work and collaborate on that.
Thanks, Sarah. Yeah, we'll talk a bit more about how that worked out. I should say, yeah, the other thing about when we wrote the proposal for all this was no one had ever heard of ChatGPT. So things have changed a bit in the course of running this thing. And so what the firms here work with in different ways are the various partners involved in the accelerators. In the case of TIPS, it's Oxford Brookes University, Salford University, and Hyperscale Group, technology consultants, so it's various expertise brought together. And in the case of future finance, it's the University of Bristol, University of West of England, University of Glasgow, Glasgow Caledonian, and Set Squared partnership. I think that's composed of those body institutions, plus lots of other partners that we're working with. So it's been a team effort, and what we've done in the case of TIPS is run activities combining training, funding, mentoring, different kinds of support for firms at different stages of technological adoption maturity, and in case of future finance, run various types of mentoring programs, training and development, and there's some materials upstairs that summarize the content of those programs. So that these and other firms have been good enough to dive in and have a go. Could you perhaps talk about the main difficulties that you were faced with and how the acceleration process helped? And anyone like to start? I'll try and avoid going down the line again. Anyone?
I'll start
Go
again,
on, Mark.
Okay. For me, having worked with tech since my first Tonka toy probably and trying to break it, I think for me the tech was the easy bit. What I found was that the people was the hard bit, especially with 6 disparate offices, trying to coordinate efforts, and then halfway through the project finding that our marketing team were running a project that impacted on our TIPS project and having to sort of go back to square one. So for me, the people was the hard bit, trying to sell the vision as to what it was that we were trying to achieve. We were adopting a relatively simplistic solution for onboarding our clients, which we thought to build, confidence in the IT team, that I became the partner of the IT partner on the 1st of April last year for my sins, having shown some interest in IT. Suddenly there you go, there's the role. To bring people on that journey. Ultimately, I found the efforts that I'd made that weren't possibly good enough. I'm possibly one of those people that likes to start a project and then I can easily lose interest. I think building a team around me that continue that effort's really helped along the way. So I think the TIPS project helped in bringing one of my colleagues along that journey too.
Yeah, I think we've found in a lot of cases that the fact that there's a project, and I suppose the clues in the word accelerate with a deadline and a fixed period helps. Yeah,
and holding me to account, and having to attend those sessions and meetings and update everyone. It does hold you to account.
Yeah. Okay, so the structure is important. Yeah.
I'll break up the...
Yeah, that's right. Let's break the linear process.
So I think the challenges we were facing, exactly that. The technology was there and it was rapidly running away from us. So actually, for me, it was how to educate and engage the people And I think the project was really key in a number of areas because it added some real credibility to what I wanted to do and what I wanted to build. So the firm were happy to match kind of the funding that we received with L&D funding, and then I was able to bring the service designers on the engagement front. And the first thing they did was actually go out and just talk to people and find out what the barriers were and how they wanted to learn, just lots of post-it notes, but actually lots of real insights. And another big benefit of working on the Accelerator was, again, being a project, very clear about how we're going to measure success and what success might look like. And that's something I think we forget a lot of the time, is actually a lot of these projects we don't stop and measure, or we don't start at the beginning and think about how do we measure the now. And that was something that was a massive benefit for us, was, you know, thinking about what does now look like, what adoption have we got? We've got this 12%, but how does that look in the firm? And other measures that we thought about in terms of well-being and other things. So I think that was a real benefit working with the project team, was thinking about how do we measure as we go. We probably couldn't have done the service design without the support of the funding, but actually that was fantastic to work through with the project team as well. And the knowledge of the expertise and the speakers that we were able to access through that gave us some skills that we didn't have as well. So one of the speakers was fantastic in helping us with a structured mechanism for uncovering use cases. So we were able to engage, and we've actually taken part of the programme has been to build 2 sets of JEDIs, we call them. So we have our business services, kind of back office, middle office JEDIs, and our legal JEDIs, and we've upskilled them in some of the things that we learned from the experts as well. So some of the ways that it's really helped us.
I think when we set out, we had in mind a fairly simple idea of implementing a technology and making it work over a period of months, but I think you've done quite a lot of developing capabilities rather than
skills,
just implementing a thing, which is...
And data privacy and governance was a massive barrier that we found, actually, and I think probably is one of the biggest barriers. So actually some of the expertise that we were able to tap in helped us build a governance framework that has helped us create the sandbox, which was a part of our application. But actually what I didn't realise, that the technology wasn't the issue and the cost of the technology wasn't the issue, but that sandbox and that expertise together with the technology really unlocked it for us too. So.
Thank you, Sarah.
Happy to go, I don't mind. So in terms of barriers, the biggest barrier that I'm facing for this particular piece of work is that the regulation doesn't actually allow us to do what we want to do at the moment. So I'm trying to sell internally the idea that this is going to be revolutionary when there's no ability to evidence that it's revolutionary. So that's kind of one of the things that I've been helped with significantly, is kind of how to have almost a startup mindset to sort of proving some of this work when you're in an established business. So that's been quite a challenge, but quite a good one to overcome. From a tech perspective, and I think this probably echoes the other comments, Hargreaves Lansdown is already sort of adopting technology. It's already on its own sort of transformation in how it sort of delivers for the future. So what I'm looking at is more of a niche area. How can I help my colleagues realise the opportunity and the roadmap for their technology delivery, and how does that have to map to new regulations? So a lot of the benefit that I've got from being on this Accelerator programme is to actually understand how you can start to influence people who are maybe already experts in technology when I'm not an expert in technology. So it's kind of trying to bring subject matter expertise to marry with, on the client side, within the technology side. And so that's something that I've been sort of helped with the whole way through.
Thank you.
And I think probably just to add another couple of layers on top of what the panel's already covered, I think for us probably the biggest challenge is people and culture, exactly the same. So I was tasked when I joined Moneyline to really wrap around a really strong change framework, and the reason that we used 10% of everything and not 100% of what we needed was because that change management framework was poorly delivered. However, if I roll forward in maybe 6 months into that project, where the challenge from that LT was that can you really wrap around a good project plan? Can you stick to deadlines? Can we do all the great work that we need to do? The biggest challenge, I think, is understanding that what people often say they want and then they project that they need to work within feels very different. So the same challenges that I had, could you wrap around this wonderful framework and make sure that we deliver what we deliver going forward well, and that we use 100% of what we intend to deliver. But I really don't want to be project managed to within an inch of my life. So as a leadership team, they needed to take a bit of time to reflect on that, because they didn't want to be managed in a project. Well, for me, you can't have it both ways. So that was a real challenge to sit down as a leadership team and a board to say, if you want to deliver good change into this organisation with technology that will enhance us and be able to deliver our mission and vision, then you have to. That has to be from top down. So that's probably, again, a big challenge that we saw as part of this project. Walk the walk and let's not talk the talk, I suppose, is summarising that. I think also for us was that if you take that down from leadership level down to operational level, how do we give our colleagues and our teams the confidence that this is here to enhance what they do day to day and not to take away and put any of those roles at risk? So how do we, so I think in the earlier session it's about taking away the boring stuff so you can really concentrate on good outcomes. We had a culture where we had staff that didn't believe there was any barriers and actually what they were doing was fine, and that's great because that's their belief. So we had to work on how we overcome that and almost made those staff that were maybe a little bit apprehensive about moving forward with technology, and how could we make them our technology champions. So if I managed to win somebody that really didn't want to come on the journey, they actually drove forward this programme immensely without really anybody else needed to get involved. They became that champion to move it forward, and it came from their peers rather than a leadership team or a senior management team. And how do they see the vision? So how do they see what the future looks like and where you are on the journey to achieve that? Pretty similar people and culture. I think we said on the pre-panel discussion, communicate. And if you think you've communicated enough, you haven't. Keep doing that because people will fall off the journey for various reasons.
I love that comment about a startup mindset, Nathan, because I think just kind of having the Innovate UK logo next to our project even just helped the firm get into a slightly different mindset. You know, they felt a bit safer because they were part of a project. They were working really closely with Oxford Brookes and others. We were collaborating with other universities and things, and actually it was okay to try things that felt a bit different, and that I think really helped as well. It's a tiny thing, but it helps to shift the way that they go into that project just a little bit culturally, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's probably not to be underestimated, the fact that professional service firms haven't historically had a department for innovation. I used to work in manufacturing, and there was the R&D department and the new product development department. How we make that happen. The session last week that we had in Carlisle, and it's come up a couple of times, the idea of champions as a vehicle for making these things happen was, I think, an interesting topic that emerged as recurring across the projects. And confidence, I think I've heard several mentions of confidence in those comments. Just perhaps to round off, and I think it's been merged somewhat in what you've said already, what would you say is the, well, I think we've learned a lot of lessons, but what would you say is the main lesson you've learned, and perhaps segue into what next? What do you plan to do on the basis of what you've done in the Accelerator, and to take it forward to the next stage?
I'll kick off. I think communicate, and communicate again. Across the firm, regularly bring the team along with you. I think being part of the TIPS project has been really useful by listening to other professional firms, be it lawyers or accountants, and the IT specialists within those firms, seeing what they've tried, see what worked, see what went well, went badly, learning the lessons from them of what they've done. And I think the champions point was an excellent point, and having a champion for me in each of the offices has really accelerated our project. So just taking away what other people have done and trying it myself has been the biggest lesson.
Yeah, and what next, Mark? What
next? Well, our rollout is finally happening on the 1st of April. So that is being rolled out across the firm in different departments over a period of sort of 3 months. So after that, once we've proven our worth in the IT department, then it's data, data, data. It's all about the data, as I think somebody was mentioning earlier. It's all about the data. We need to clean it up. So that's the next big exercise.
Okay. And we'll come and ask you how it went in about 6 months' time.
So we deliver our product to market in May, so if I'm looking a little bit dishevelled and tired because it's in the testing and final regression testing and all of that wonderful stage. But I think what we've taken away from the Accelerator programme, obviously we're a small not-for-profit organisation and work in a sector of financial services where it's either not-for-profit or, there isn't the large budgets that are there for many large organisations. So we've taken this opportunity and what we've learned from the Accelerator programme to be able to go and help some of those networking and peer organisations that work within our sector, to be able to share some of our experiences. What we've learned as part of the Accelerator programme is that we probably lost our way a little bit in terms of product design. So we're talking to those organisations about going back to real basics about customer value, product customer value, what needs to be true, people and communication, so some of the things that the panel have covered today. And for us, it's then how, again, proof's in the pudding, but if this product launches as we expect it to, it's how we replicate the lessons that we've learned in there to be able to move at pace with some of our product design. The Accelerator programme allowed us to move very quickly. If we hadn't been in that programme, it probably would have took us 2 or 3 times the length of time it took to get from start to taking product to market. And I think a big sell for the programme, because I'm assuming this is my last little section on the panel, is that the Accelerator programme, we touched on it earlier, but wrapping that deadline round a programme, which means you are forced to take some selfish time outside of your business and work on a project, doesn't happen unless you're a really, really harsh time planner on yourself. And I'm assuming there's nobody in this room that is that harsh, because we're all here to run a business and the business always comes first, but the programme certainly forces you to do that. So I would recommend anybody that's interested to go on. And then just to pick up on the early point, it created such credibility for both internal and external stakeholders for us, and it opened doors that we would probably have taken months to be able to open and access some of that SME support.
Or you do what I did, which was hire a CTO to do the heavy lifting for you.
Yes, hence why I look very tired right now as a CTO.
Right, so could just give us a sense of what the product you mentioned is. What does it do?
Yeah, so we,
how big a thing is it?
We've seen a real trend in the last sort of 12 to 18 months with our customers where they're applying for personal credit where actually credit isn't the answer. So we can see that that's for loan purposes that could be served by other support services like grants, access to different tariffs in terms of reduced tariffs and lots of different support there. So we have designed a product that where a customer enters a credit journey and that credit journey ends in a decline because credit is not the answer and there's another alternative there, and whether that's due to product suitability or whether that's down to affordability or whatever else is part of that decision making, we have designed a product that takes that customer through that decline journey or through that conversation that says credit isn't quite the answer for you right now, and takes them into a portal that allows them to access an immediate cash grant to take away the stress of that I need cash for something, and that could be as small as £50 and £100. It's also got access to if they are potentially missing out on benefits that they're entitled to. It looks at local food banks where you go and get your voucher, a whole raft of different things that says work with us through these steps and let's see if we can get you the help and the support that we need. With the final aim of that product to be able to bring them back out in a much better financial position, whether that's increased income or reduced expenditure. And if credit is the answer at some point, which everybody has a need for credit at some point in their life, then actually they're in a much better position to seek out the right product from the right organisation.
Thanks. Thank you. Nathan.
I suppose in terms of what's been the most beneficial, there's just been I suppose one of the key things was when we've been having, on the leadership programme that I'm sort of working on, almost giving you confidence that everyone's slightly concerned about AI. Not everyone understands what we mean by AI, and the fact that, I guess before I went into it thinking, God, there's this thing that's happening and everyone knows what it is, but except for me, and it's quite hard to sort of overcome that, and actually giving you the confidence, no, that's not the case. You understand the problems, and you can start to link in these solutions to it. So that, I think that's been kind of really confidence building for me personally. But the big takeaways for me is, how do you drive that kind of organisational change to deliver on things that we know are important using technology? So those are the key things that I guess I've taken away. But the way that it's worked on the Future Finance programme, by having, and I imagine, I don't know, the Future Finance team will probably be able to answer these questions for you, but it's probably an absolute nightmare for them to administer, in that they give you one challenge. They say, right, you define the challenge, you create that, and we will work with you. That's bespoke to your business. And obviously there's challenges in terms of you're in a collaborative environment and you don't want to talk about too much in front of other folk, etc., etc. It must be a nightmare to have all these different projects for different people, but it really, really helps you to go, that's what I need to deliver on. I've got questions specifically about this problem for my organisation. So it's been really, really helpful sort of coming through that, I think, as part of this, not necessarily for delivering a product, because obviously that's much more shiny and helpful to clients that you've just articulated there, but just in terms of the next steps that we're going to be able to take, is all because of how this process has enabled us to think, I guess, or enabled me to think and sort of influence within the business.
Thank you. Sarah.
Lots and lots of people lessons learned through the project, some surprising and some not surprising. So the time that we took to really understand what the barriers were and how many assumptions we all make, that one being everybody knows a bit about AI, actually being able to quote that 12% and say, look guys, you know, this is the whole sector, it's not just you. And actually when we measured ourselves, we did a bit better, but at least that kind of gave everybody a bit of confidence that we were all at the start of a journey, so to speak. But not making assumptions about how people want to learn, how people want to be engaged in different ways. Some people are really happy with e-learning, but equally there's people that would surprise you that prefer somebody to give you that kind of that one-to-one explanation or hold your hands through stuff. So I think not making assumptions and actually having the time and the capacity to go out and engage the firm in a way we'd never done before was a massive learning curve for us. And I always used champions in the past, and I would always say, well, not that one, no, not her. Or, oh, he's brilliant, we'll bring him in. But actually this time we tried it a bit differently, and we just engaged the firm in lots of different ways we hadn't tried before. We had an all-colleague conference, we did some road shows, and we just asked people to come and tell us their stories about how they might be using AI at home. And all of a sudden we had champions that really shocked me, that I would never have dreamed that would go out and create a podcast on some public consultation using Google LM for their team, because she knew that they're all time poor and that none of them will read 200 pages. So that for me, again, just not making assumptions that I know who the champions are, and the power of a story. You know, again, just telling that story and lots of other small win stories. And I loved what Lee said about, you know, starting with disaggregating tasks, but then actually starting with, you know, the stuff that's easy to do, the low-hanging fruit, I hate that phrase, but the high-impact, low-risk things. If you can create 5 of those stories and tell those stories, then all of a sudden you get people coming along, and it just adds to this, oh, this Innovate UK stuff's great, we're getting stuff done really quickly, and we've suddenly uncovered 4 new use cases, quite basic ones, but ones that feel like they really are giving people back time in their day to do the bits that they still feel quite protective of around the practice of law. But equally our JEDIs, who are a little bit more ambitious, again, some of them surprisingly, actually trying things that are the practice of law. But then in some of the new technologies, you've got things that are familiar, like redlining. That was one of the best things ever introduced into an AI tool, because it feels quite familiar. So again, they tell the stories of, well, it was good at that, but not this. So I think that's my biggest lesson, is just by focusing on the resource that helped us engage the people and understand the people in my firm, I think we've done more than we would have done buying any technology. What's next for us? Well, we've launched our AI in the Loop brand, because you've got to kind of have something to talk about with people. We've got T-shirts. We've been on tour around every office in the firm to kind of just engage people. We've given them prompt cards to try. We've asked them how they use AI at home, because a lot of people do use it, but they just don't really link the two. And we've launched our sandbox now, having gone through the hell of governance of these products, to try and give people a really safe environment to test in. So I think we've got 4 use cases in the last week alone, just from people coming along to one of these and saying, what if? And one of the most powerful questions we asked was, what are the things you really hate doing? And so many of our lawyers then turned around and said, oh, I hate doing compliance and risk and financial management. So again, not necessarily focusing on the practice of law, but just trying to win them back more time has been hugely engaging. So, but I think the accelerators enable us to bring in skills we didn't necessarily feel, well, the firm maybe didn't feel confident that they should invest in longer term. And suddenly it's been a very, it's been a big success story, and they realise that this is the key that's going to unlock things going forward.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody. I'm conscious of time. Thanks for all the contributions from the panel. The accelerators continue until September, and we'll be doing various bits of research and re-engaging with firms, and we'll be running various events and activities. There's more information up on the exhibitor stands, so come and see us, come and talk to us, and I'll draw it to a close there. Perhaps we could thank the panel for their input.